There is a silent weight that many people carry every single day without having words for it. It is not something you can point to on a medical chart, and it rarely shows up in casual conversations, yet it shapes how we walk into a room, how we speak, how we love, and how we dream. It does not leave bruises on the skin, but it leaves marks on the soul. It is the invisible hand that keeps us from saying what we truly think, from showing what we deeply feel, from taking steps toward the life we want. That weight is shame. Shame is not just another emotion like sadness or anger. It is far more pervasive and slippery. It does not burst in loudly. It creeps in silently, like smoke that fills every corner without you realizing it. Shame is not simply about behavior, as guilt is. Guilt says, I did something wrong. Shame says, I am something wrong. And that tiny shift from what you did to who you are changes everything about how a human being experiences life. Most people underestimate the force of shame because it doesn't scream. It whispers. It doesn't push us with visible violence. Instead, it plants subtle doubts. It shapes the way we see ourselves and sets unspoken limits on what feels possible. You might never name it, but you feel it when you avoid eye contact, when you hold back your opinion, when you sabotage opportunities, when you freeze at the thought of being truly seen. From the earliest years of childhood, shame begins to take root. Imagine a child who reaches for attention and gets a disapproving look. Imagine a child who is compared to a sibling. Why can't you be more like your brother? Imagine a girl who hears comments about her body, a boy who is mocked for crying, a student who is told their curiosity is annoying. These moments may seem small to adults, but to a child, they are life-shaping. Because a child doesn't yet have the tools to separate what they do from who they are. The child doesn't think, my behavior was wrong. They think, I am wrong. This is the seed of shame. As children, we depend on approval for survival. We need to be loved, fed, protected. So when we sense that parts of us, our anger, our sadness, our needs, our desires, might risk rejection, we hide them. We create masks. We silence ourselves. We push parts of us into the shadows. Authenticity is traded for belonging. Over time, this becomes automatic. We no longer even notice when we hide. We adjust, perform, adapt. We build what therapist John Bradshaw famously called the false self. This false self is not who we really are. It is who we think we need to be to avoid rejection. And while it helps us survive childhood, it creates an emptiness that follows us into adulthood. We feel like we are never enough, like something essential is missing. Like no matter what we achieve, we cannot silence the inner voice that says, you are flawed. And that voice is relentless. It becomes an internal judge, always watching. It criticizes every step. Don't say that, it's stupid. Don't try that, you'll fail. Don't show that, people will laugh. It doesn't guide you kindly, it condemns you harshly. Adults who grew up under this watchful inner eye often feel trapped inside their own lives, unable to breathe freely. They censor themselves before anyone else can. This is why shame is so destructive. It doesn't just shape our actions, it shapes our identity. We stop believing I feel ashamed and start believing I am shameful. Over time, we confuse the parasite with the host, the voice with the self. But shame is not truth, it is conditioning. To understand how to break free, we must first see how shame operates differently from guilt. Guilt can be healthy. It tells us, I did something that hurt myself or someone else. If I snap at a friend, guilt nudges me to apologize. If I break a promise, guilt reminds me to make amends. Guilt focuses on behavior, which can be repaired. The message of guilt is, you did wrong, now make it right. Shame's message is darker. It says you are wrong and nothing can make you right. While guilt preserves dignity, shame destroys it. Guilt points the way to growth. Shame blocks it. A person drowning in guilt might say, I messed up. A person drowning in shame says, I am a mess. And that belief becomes a prison. From this prison grow many familiar patterns. perfectionism so intense it paralyzes, procrastination so heavy it suffocates, people-pleasing so desperate it erases boundaries, addictions and compulsions so strong they distract from the inner pain. Shame doesn't just hurt, it hijacks the system. And it doesn't just live in the mind, it lives in the body. It shows up when your shoulders tense, when your gaze drops, when your chest tightens at the thought of being exposed. Shame is stored in emotional memory. It becomes part of how you walk, how you speak, how you hold yourself. But here is the most dangerous part. Shame hides. It camouflages itself as humility, as caution, as just being realistic. We say, "I'm just not good at that," when in truth we are afraid of being judged. We say, "I don't want to bother anyone," when in truth we are terrified of rejection. We say, "I'm fine," when in truth we are aching to be seen. So where does this begin? Shame is not something we are born with. Babies don't feel shame when they cry or laugh or stumble. They simply express. Shame is taught. It is conditioned. Parents, teachers, peers, culture, all contribute. A toddler reaches for a cookie and is scolded harshly. A boy cries and is told boys don't cry. A girl is told she is too loud. A student is punished for asking too many questions. Over time, the child learns, my authentic self is not safe. They conclude, if I show who I really am, I will lose. Love, and so begins the splitting of the self. The real self, spontaneous, expressive, authentic, gets pushed into hiding. The mask, the false self, takes its place. And while the mask might win approval, it suffocates the soul. John Bradshaw described this as the central wound of shame, alienation from one's essence. We trade authenticity for acceptance, but the cost is a constant sense of inadequacy. We chase external validation, grades, jobs, praise, relationships, trying to fill the void, but nothing fills it because the root wound is internal. And this cycle doesn't stop with one generation. Parents who carry shame often pass it on unknowingly. A father who was shamed for crying might shame his own son for tears. A mother who felt never enough might project the same pressure onto her daughter. Shame becomes generational, a silent inheritance that shapes families for decades. As adults, we continue to censor ourselves before anyone else can. We become our own prison guards, and the prison is invisible but powerful. The French philosopher Michel Foucault explained that power becomes most effective not when it punishes from outside, but when it teaches people to watch themselves. That is shame's design. It installs an inner watchtower in the mind. You don't need others to judge you anymore. You do it yourself relentlessly. This inner judge says, don't speak too much. People will think you're arrogant. Don't try that, you'll embarrass yourself. Don't let anyone see you struggle. They'll think less of you. And even when no one is watching, the shame voice is. It whispers that you're not enough, that you're unworthy, that you should shrink. The effect is devastating. Shame makes people smaller versions of themselves. It empties out courage, dulls creativity, kills spontaneity. It pushes us into conformity, safety, invisibility. But safety at the cost of aliveness is no safety at all. So how do we recognize when shame is operating? The first clue is language. Notice how you talk to yourself in moments of failure. Do you say, I failed? Or do you say, I am a failure? That difference reveals everything. Shame attacks identity, not behavior. The second clue is avoidance. Shame makes us avoid situations where we might be exposed. We avoid speaking in public, sharing ideas, taking risks, setting boundaries, not because we lack ability, but because shame tells us, if they see you, they will reject you. The third clue is self-sabotage. Chronic procrastination, perfectionism, addictions, isolation. These are not random flaws. They are survival strategies rooted in shame. They are ways of numbing the pain of not feeling enough. The fourth clue is projection. People who are drowning in internal shame often criticize others harshly. They judge, they condemn, because it temporarily distracts them from their own self-condemnation. Recognizing shame is painful. It requires courage to admit how deep it runs. But it is also liberating, because the moment you can point to it and say, "This is shame, not me," you begin to separate from it. You realize it is not truth. It is learned, and everything learned can be unlearned. So what comes next? Once we see shame, how do we dismantle it? The answer is not willpower. The answer is compassion. Self-compassion is often misunderstood. Some think it means letting yourself off the hook, ignoring responsibility, or repeating empty affirmations. That is not real compassion. Real compassion is fierce. It is honest. It is strong. It means facing your wounds with clarity and staying present with yourself anyway. It means looking at your vulnerable parts without disgust. It means saying, "Even here, I am worthy." Psychologist Kristin Neff, one of the leading voices in this field, describes self-compassion as a powerful form of emotional regulation. When you practice it, your nervous system shifts from threat mode to safety mode, and in safety, growth can happen. Self-compassion means allowing yourself to stumble without tearing yourself apart. It means understanding that failure is part of being human, not evidence of being defective. It means treating yourself as you would a child who is hurting, firmly but kindly, responsibly but gently. But here is the key. Self-compassion also challenges shame. It asks, who taught me to see myself this way? Whose voice am I hearing when I say I am not enough? Why do I believe my worth is conditional? These questions dismantle the power of shame because they reveal it as inherited, not inherent. And once you see that shame was taught, you see it can be untaught. You are not the problem. You have a problem, and that problem has a name: shame. But it is not you. Shame begins to loosen its grip the moment we shine light on it. Because shame thrives in secrecy. It feeds on silence, on hidden wounds, on stories never told. When you name it, when you speak it, even if only to yourself at first, something changes. The spell weakens. Think about it. When you keep shame inside, it grows like mold in the dark. But when you bring it into the open, through words, through journaling, through therapy, through trusted conversation, it loses oxygen. It is no longer a silent parasite. It becomes something you can see, understand, and eventually let go. This doesn't mean shame disappears overnight. Old habits don't vanish in a single step. Shame will still try to whisper in moments of vulnerability, but once you recognize its voice, you no longer confuse it with your truth. That is the turning point. The day you realize this voice is not me, it is a lie I was taught to believe. And once you can say that, the prison doors start to open. To live authentically in the face of shame is not about becoming perfect. It is about daring to be human, to cry and laugh, to succeed and fail, to change your mind, to be messy, vulnerable, inconsistent, alive. Shame says, if people see who you really are, they will stop loving you. The truth is the opposite. Only when you reveal who you really are does true love, both from others and from yourself, become possible. But make no mistake, breaking free from shame requires courage. It means walking back into the wounds of childhood, facing the voices of criticism and rejection, and telling them, you don't define me anymore. It means noticing every time you censor yourself and asking, is this really me, or is this shame? Speaking, it means practicing self-compassion daily, even when it feels uncomfortable or undeserved. Let's explore some of the practical ways this liberation unfolds. One way is awareness of language. Start listening to how you speak to yourself. Replace "I am a failure" with "I failed at this attempt." Notice the difference. The first statement condemns your being. The second critiques your behavior. One destroys dignity, the other preserves it. Training your mind to make this distinction weakens shame's foundation. Another way is embracing vulnerability. Shame says, hide your flaws. Courage says, show them anyway. Vulnerability is not weakness, it is truth. When you share your struggles, when you admit imperfection, you create connection. People don't love you because you are flawless. They love you because you are real. A third way is reparenting yourself. Many of the shame messages you carry were inherited from childhood. Don't cry. Don't ask questions. Don't be too much. These voices still echo inside, but you are no longer that powerless child. You can now speak back. You can tell your inner child, it's okay to feel. It's okay to ask. It's okay to be you. Every time you do this, you reclaim a piece of your authentic self. A fourth way is community. Shame isolates. It convinces you that you are alone in your flaws, that no one else could possibly understand. But when you hear others share their stories of shame, you realize you are not alone. Community brings healing because it breaks secrecy. It allows light to pour in where darkness once lived. Fifth, practice compassion outward. When you see others being judgmental, remember that they too may be carrying their own shame. When you offer kindness instead of condemnation, you disrupt the cycle. Compassion toward others reinforces compassion toward yourself. But the most important step of all is consistency. Shame took years to build its fortress inside you. It won't fall overnight, but brick by brick, with awareness, compassion, and courage, the walls crumble. So how does life look without shame running the show? Imagine waking up without the constant fear of being exposed. Imagine taking risks not because you are certain you'll succeed, but because you no longer equate failure with worthlessness. Imagine being able to say what you feel, ask for what you need, show who you are, without apology. Life without shame is not perfect, but it is free. It is authentic. It is alive. Let's bring this even deeper with examples of how shame manifests and how to undo it. Take perfectionism. Many people believe striving for perfection is about high standards. In truth, perfectionism is often a cover for shame. The inner voice says, if I make no mistakes, no one will see how flawed I am. The antidote is not to lower standards, but to allow imperfection. To remind yourself, mistakes are proof of trying, not proof of worthlessness. Consider procrastination. On the surface, it looks like laziness. But under the surface, shame whispers, if you start this, you'll fail and everyone will see. Procrastination is self-protection from the pain of imagined exposure. The antidote is self-compassion. To tell yourself, it's okay to begin imperfectly. Progress matters more than perfection. Look at people-pleasing. At first, it seems like kindness. But underneath, shame says, if I disappoint anyone, they will leave me. So you bend, adapt, say yes when you mean no. The antidote is learning boundaries rooted in self-worth. To believe, I am still lovable even if I say no. Examine addictions and compulsions. Whether it's substances, screens, work, or food, many compulsive behaviors are attempts to numb shame. They distract from the inner voice of unworthiness. The antidote is not only sobriety, but honesty. To face the pain instead of running from it. To bring the hidden wound into the light. See how all of these behaviors, perfectionism, procrastination, people-pleasing, addiction, are not random flaws, but strategies to survive shame. Once you see that, you can stop fighting the symptoms and start addressing the root. And the root is this, the belief that you are unworthy. This belief was never yours to begin with. It was planted by a parent's harsh words, by a teacher's disapproving glare, by a culture that demands impossible standards. It was taught. And what was taught can be untaught. Self-compassion is the tool. Awareness is the light. Community is the support. Courage is the path. Now let's reflect on something crucial. Shame will always try to return. It will whisper in moments of weakness. It will echo in old triggers. But now you are no longer defenseless. You know its voice. You know its tricks. And once named, it can no longer control you the same way. This is why speaking shame is powerful. Tell your story. Say the words, "I carry shame, but it is not me." When you speak it, you own it. When you own it, it cannot own you. Some people fear that if they reveal their shame, they will lose connection. The truth is the opposite. Connection grows in authenticity. People connect to your truth, not your mask. Masks may win admiration, but they never build intimacy. Only truth does. So what does it look like to live beyond shame? It looks like daring to express yourself fully. It looks like setting boundaries without guilt. It looks like pursuing dreams not to prove your worth, but because you already know you're worthy. It looks like allowing yourself to be loved as you are, not as you pretend to be. And here is the radical truth. You are not your shame. You never were. Shame is a parasite, a shadow, a lie that grew in silence. You are whole. You are capable. You are enough. Even now you might feel the echo of shame saying, "Not me, not yet. I'm too broken." That voice is lying. Healing begins not when shame disappears, but when you stop believing it defines you. Every step toward authenticity is a step away from shame. Every act of compassion toward yourself is a blow against its power. Every story you tell, every truth you reveal, every moment you choose courage over silence, all of these weaken shame's grip. So here's the invitation. Choose truth. Choose compassion. Choose courage. Shame will whisper, "Let it." You don't have to obey, because shame is not your destiny. Freedom is. And the next step on your journey is this. Don't stop here. Keep walking. Keep naming the lies. Keep practicing compassion. Keep daring to be seen. Because once you step into your truth, shame cannot hold you anymore. Never again.